Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. It's a happy Monday. Very much so. Monday, the 27th of February. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10, and I'm joined today by Sean Martin and Aidan Macdonald at Sean Martin TCW Twitter handle and at Aidan C. Macdonald Twitter handle. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Tony. How are we?
Good. Aidan, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Always a pleasure on a day like this after that result.
Turns out the other mob were no bad. Yeah, join in. Songs to sing and learn when the other mob go up to win the League Cup. ... You know the words. Guys, Celtic 2, Rangers 1, League Cup final. We will talk in depth about that any minute. But first and foremost, we do the housekeeping every day. And we ask you, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And it will cost you the princely sum of £2 for 2 months for the click of a button, covering top quality journalism, covering the club love. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Well, there's my dogs going mental. There you go. They've just heard the result. And we also say thank you to SENECA and the Celtic Way morning briefing. It's now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video even, guys. There you go. Now, tremendous. I wish my dogs would be quiet, but they will in a minute. There you go. Guys, Celtic 2, Rangers 1, as we said. Sean, you and myself were present at Hampden. Yep. Celtic worthy of that, deserved winners of the trophy. 2 goals from Kyogo, and that monumental stat, Sean, that you dredged up, that Kyogo was the first Celtic player to score 2 goals in 2 successive finals since Billy McPhail achieved the same feat in 1956 and 1957. Now, you will read that in every Cup finals, yeah. You'll read that stat in every newspaper and see it on every kind of broadcasting. But your man there was busy whilst spinning plates at Hampden, and he dredged up that. So big up to Mr. Sean Martin or Startle.
I'll tell you why, Tony. And I told you why yesterday, but I'll tell you why he did as well, and everybody else. Because when he scored the second, I was convinced he was going to get a hat trick.
Yes.
So I started going through all the League Cup finals trying to see who'd scored the hat trick, and it was Henrik Larsson 2001 for Celtic, right? It was the last hat trick in the League Cup final. But I went back, and then next thing I know, I'll look up and his number's up and he's getting taken off. I'm going, right, well, there must be a start in back-to-back braces then. So I ended up trawling through the same matches again, taking note of the braces, and it was Billy McPhail, 1956 and 57. The 57 one also was obviously a hat trick in the famous 7-1-1. So he actually went one better. But 66 years, Tony. Once every 66 years it happens.
Correct. Yes. It's entering or straying into Halley's comic territory, but you might read something about that in the fullness of time. Aidan, your own thoughts on that? Celtic worthy winners?
Yeah, in the end, I would say so. More than deserved winners, Tony. Obviously, did dip a wee bit in the second half for a period, but I think over the course of the game, you couldn't really argue that Celtic deserved to win it. I know we'll probably go on to talk about individual performances, but I did think the whole team was really, really solid. Even players coming on later on, like Wata and that, etc. Obviously making their first appearance in an occasion like the League Cup final, but also a derby as well. Thought he was pretty controlled, and I thought O did all right as well. So yeah, no, nothing but good things to say about yesterday.
Show me.
I know we're going to go on to individuals, but just because Aidan mentioned Wata, in case we don't bring him up again, you mentioned at the time you thought that he'd been doing well while he was on. Aidan's mentioned him there. I've had a wee glimpse. I've not went in depth, but I've had a wee glimpse at the stats. He won all 7 of his duels after coming on, which when you think of the situation he came on in, and I know Celtic were winning, but it was at the tail end of when Rangers were having that wee spell. He did make an impact, and I think it's to his credit that he came on in that situation. Never just saw out the game, but actively helped Celtic shore it up a wee bit, and that platform led to, as we'll come to, potentially another couple of goals at the end for Celtic, actually.
I thought Iwata helped Celtic midfield get another stranglehold on the game in the latter stages. And I said that to you, didn't I? That we had lost our way a wee bit when Boy and Hatate went off. But when Iwata came on, they get a stranglehold on the game and could have, as you said, scored a couple of goals. Haksabanovic had chances, Matt O'Reilly had chances. But yeah, I was very impressed with Iwata, and I was pleased with his contribution because Celtic certainly needed it. But speaking of individuals, Sean, we both agreed that our man of the match was the much maligned Swedish central defender at times, Big Carl Starfelt. What a stormer he had, an absolute stormer.
He was brilliant. I mean, we kept nudging each other during the game, going, "Listen, he's playing brilliant here. This is arguably his best game." I've in my notes I had several, and I'll probably reference this a few times, but I had several kind of almost key battles. So I had Morelos versus Starfelt. Really, it's Morelos versus both of them because it was one up front. Yeah. But specifically, I thought they'll try and target Starfelt. I thought, especially in the opening half, Starfelt was switched on with his head, with his feet. And I mean, with his feet, not just in passing, but in terms of using the ball, in terms of maybe taking it past someone, carrying it before he passed it. It was phenomenal in the first half, especially. And I said this to a couple of people last night, and they says, but near the end, he had a couple of wee moments. And all right, he did have a couple of small moments, but it didn't cost anything. And I think overall, I think you were justified in giving him his 9 out of 10 because it was a big stage, big opposition, big game. And he was, even when Kyogo got 2 goals, Starfelt to me still stood out.
Well, it's his interception at least to the first goal because he shunts it to Moy and then the quick thinking after that, Aidan. But it doesn't happen if Carl Starfelt doesn't read James Tavernier's kind of whatever pass or just ball in the general direction of, but you know who hit it in the general direction of, but Big Starfelt was there to read it. But he was strutting about like big Franz Beckenbauer yesterday and even doing turns in his own box, which gives everybody heart failure. But
well, me and you were kind of holding on to each other's arms at that point, going on, you know.
I'd like to think he was in control, Aidan, at all times and knew what he was doing.
Yeah, it was very good during the game, and it wasn't just his defensive work. I know he did have the odd wee touch here or there, but most players had a wee moment and maybe their touch was a bit off. But overall, I thought his distribution was really good from the back as well. And it was a really accomplished performance by Starfelt. Carter Vickers also, I thought, was phenomenal beside him. But yeah, Starfelt was really good, and he dealt with Morelos pretty well for the majority of the game, who is a threat in these games. He's going to be in throwing himself about and that, and Starfelt was really strong. And yeah, that interception you were talking about in particular, Tony, was keen. It was a really impressive. Probably was his best performance for Celtic, I would say, anyway. I mean, he has been very solid, Starfelt, and I think a lot of the criticism he probably gets is still people just thinking about those first few games last season, even though he's had many really good performances since then. But overall, it was really competent from Starfelt, no doubt about that.
Yeah, and Cameron Carter-Vickers, that interception that he just saved a certain goal. I did ask him.
Am I right in saying you asked him about it, Tony?
I asked him if he thought he'd scored an own goal. He just looked at me and went, nah, I knew it was going wide. And I was like, just as blasé as that. But it certainly looked close, didn't it? But he knew what he was doing. But it was crucial and a vital block. I also asked the manager, he mentioned the defence yesterday, the manager, but I said to him about those two in particular, the two central defenders, and he said they were immense. But to be fair to Postecoglou, he mentioned Johnston and Taylor as well.
Yeah,
he said they were terrific. But he said that the contribution of the two guys in central defence was immense because he said that they're the two that every game he asked them to go one-on-one with somebody. Saying people think that because you dominate games that it's an easy shift. He's like, but they're man marking somebody every game because that's the way he wants them to play. He said, so they can't switch off, they're not allowed. Despite the fact that Celtic dominate games, they've got to be constantly aware. And I thought that was quite a nice insight into, what he asked the two of them to do,
I've said before, I think playing Celtic centre-back is one of the hardest positions in world football just because of the responsibility you've got.
Yeah.
And as Postecoglou's touching on a lot of that there, I think yesterday, arguably the games against Rangers allow them to do more traditional defensive work than a lot of the other games in Scottish football, because that is watch the space behind you. Basically, as I say, with the pass networks all the time, that they're virtually in the opposition half for the most of the game. Against Rangers, it's slightly different. Not got quite as much of the ball. You maybe be occupied a wee bit more and traditionally defensively. Starfelt in particular seems to like that. And I think he liked it again yesterday. He likes that Morelos is willing to try and get a wee bit physical with him, and obviously we know Carter Vickers likes that. But in terms of the way that this showed up in the data, and again, I've not went fully into it, I've just kind of took a quick journey around it, a magical mystery tour around it. Starfelt, to nobody's surprise, came out with the highest dual success rate of anybody that started, and the most recoveries. Carter Vickers, and I don't know if this will surprise you or not, because obviously we were concentrating a lot on Starfelt, but Carter Vickers was by far the most interceptions in the game and by far the most blocked shots in the game. So as much as Celtic were clearly the better team to me, I think despite the scoreline only being 1 goal in it, I think Celtic were clearly the better team, maybe besides that 15-minute spell in the second half. They did have things to do, and both of them came out shining. Both of them came out having had a really, really good game in that sense.
And also as well, Aidan, talk about the likes of Greg Taylor and Alistair Johnston. Taylor's ball across the face of goal, 1-0. And if Maida, well, thankfully Maida fresh aired it, you know what I mean? So
both fullbacks were excellent, I thought, and Alistair Johnston in particular, I thought he was phenomenal. I know he played in the last derby also, but he was making his first appearance in the sort of big cup final stage like that, and he didn't play in the semi-final against Kilmarnock, did either. It was Juranovic that played, so the sort of first appearance at Hampden, and he was excellent the way he was going forward. He was really strong defensively, and that sort of ball he played in relatively well in the game over the top to Kyogo. I know Kyogo ended up kind of just falling down, but that'd have been a brilliant assist, and he hadn't had another one in near the end of the first half. It was a good cross for Kyogo's header, so his sort of distribution and that attempt to set up chances was excellent overall. Taylor, I thought, had a pretty good game as well. Obviously, he got the assist. So a couple of times, maybe in the first half, he was maybe out of position a wee bit, but he grew into the game and he was very assured from the second half onwards. And both fullbacks are so important to how Celtic play. So the fact that they had a good game definitely helped the end result.
He got that assist, Tony. I checked the match stats. He ended up, he got it, because we were sitting frantically trying to figure out if Maida had in any way scuffed it to credit him with an assist, but Taylor's been given it.
Fair enough. We also touched upon Johnson, didn't we? The two were talking that he was just he's just getting stuck right in, wasn't he?
Well, I mean, this comes a week after, or whatever it is, a week and a half after I says I want to see a wee bit more of it, even if the manager has told them don't give referees an excuse, all that kind of stuff. There's some situations that it works in your favour to get maybe a wee bit involved. To an extent, and I think Johnston had a wee bit of the ice hockey in him. Yesterday with it was definitely. I think was it Barisic and Cholak. I think he was having a wee ding dong with. I like that, and I think it was at a good moment in the game to show that kind of passion.
You mentioned one right near the end, didn't you? And he was still going hell for leather, because you turned to me and said, "There's another vital interception."
Well, it led to the
and I was too busy typing away, and you're like, "Look, right, okay, sorry, what have I missed?" But Aidan, I agree with you. I thought it was a very good team performance. I also thought that in the midfield, Kalmak, Rio Hatate, and Aaron Moy dominated for as long as those three of them were on the park. And Moy's contribution for the 2 goals can't be underestimated. The shunt to Taylor, and then the ball through to Hatate, who squares it for Kyogo for the second goal. He was the cool head that Kevin McKenna spoke about on Friday, and I thought that really helped Celtic, because I don't think Lundstrom got a kick. I don't know if Lundstrom was fit or not, but that's by and by. But I thought Aaron Moy just controlled it, him and Kalmak and Hatate, for the time that they were on.
I'd agree with that. I thought they played well, all three of them, as a unit. I thought Moy had a couple of issues with his footing at the start. He slipped a few times. And I think he held on to the ball slightly too long, more than once. But ultimately, he held on to it, which is the key point. You're right to mention his role in the build-up to both goals will maybe go unnoticed. Again, he deserved to start. I know I tipped O'Reilly to start. As I said, I had no qualms if it ended up Aaron Moy, because his form said that he deserved it. And I think he showed why again.
I'll just bring this up, Aidan, from the bottom of your screen. You get 9 out of 11. Sean gets 10 out of 11. You're all clean sweep, 11 out of 11. Neil did starting 11. So, yep. But we won't dwell on that. Aidan, were you happy with the midfield? You mentioned it first. I believe that you brought it up first, but yeah, I was delighted with the way the midfield played. That trio in particular when they came on, and obviously Awata came on, showed that up, got the result.
Yeah, the midfield three were phenomenal in the middle of the park. It's obviously so important to how Celtic play, but particularly in those games, I think making sure when they've got the ball, they're finding a pass or holding on to it. You don't want to be losing those sorts of battles, and Celtic were excellent. McGregor was anchoring sort of the midfield as you would expect. He was another one probably went under the radar a wee bit, but it was still a real assured performance. But Moy and Hatate were phenomenal. Like you guys are mentioning, it probably will go under the sort of radar a wee bit. Moy's role in the 2 goals, but particularly the second pass for Hatate, obviously, who then assisted Kyogo, was phenomenal. And Hatate himself, I thought he was excellent. He was my sort of kind of player of the match for me. I know Starfelt, what you guys said, he was obviously a worthy choice for that as well, but I thought Hatate was the best player on the pitch. Some of his touches, even if he hadn't got the assist for the second goal, I still would have been ranting him up there. I thought he basically didn't put a foot wrong the whole game. And yeah, that sort of three in the middle of the park were really important to what Celtic were trying to do yesterday. And like the fullbacks in the defence, thankfully, they all did a really good game.
Ed Janjo comes in. This team, the spirit of togetherness, can't help but feel this is something special. Indeed. And moving further forward, Kyogo, what can we say? 24 for the season, 2 typical Kyogo goals. But see the movement for the second goal. It was my father that told me to go and watch it again. But I mean, as soon as the ball goes to Hatate, he's gone. And again, Barisic caught out. Where did he come from? He came from behind you. He's first to the ball. Ball's in the net. You cannot teach that. That's instinctive. That's knowing where the ball's going before the ball's coming across. Once the first pass is played, it's just getting in there knowing that's coming across here. I better be in there. And that's the one that Ange Postecoglou was going on about after the Livingston game. Mm-hmm. When players weren't making those runs, he was a bit disappointed with that. And ever since then, they've no stopped making those runs. What do you know? They keep scoring.
I mean,
it doesn't happen by accident, Sean, does it?
No, it doesn't. But I still think in that Livingston game, he was talking about the midfielders rather than Kyogo. And what I'll say is, Tony, it was very good timing to have a certain piece on the website with what John Hartson sees when he watches Kyogo, and for John Hartson to pinpoint that exact run, for him then to score both. Where a kind of near post / centre of the box run and a cutback is just excellent timing on both John Hartson's part and Kyogo's part.
Correct. Aidan, Kyogo, Callum McGregor labelled him a superstar. I was desperate to speak to Jota. He was there, but we didn't get a chance to, and I wanted to ask him. I thought you were the only superstar in the team, but I didn't get a chance. But I mean, that he has came in last summer, and he just hit the ground running with the hat trick at Celtic Park in his first game in front of the Celtic supporters. And there's very few people get that kind of special rapport and relationship with the supporters, but he's heading that way, isn't he? He's a special talent, and the manager says it's not just for his goals, but it's everything that he brings. He's just such a team player, and you have to say when he celebrates in front of the supporters and smiles and leads the singing and the dancing, it's very infectious, isn't it? Even Joe Hart was praising it yesterday during the after-match interview. He just said, look at that, it's special to the interviewer on the sports network that covered it, so Viaplay. And he said to her, just watch that, it's special. But there's Kyogo doing his bit with the chant and singing. But he seems to have embraced the whole Celtic culture, but the Celtic supporters have taken Kyogo to their hearts, haven't they? And 2 winning goals in both cup finals successively. You can't argue with that, can you, Aidan?
No, I mean, that is sort of very much turning up in the big games, isn't it? That's 2 cup finals now that are probably going to be really remembered to an extent for being Kyogo Cup finals, like 10 years from now or whatever. The fact he's got, doubles in both those games. And yeah, he's been a phenomenal signing, obviously on 24 goals this season. I'm sure he's probably going to be Celtic's top goal scorer in the league probably, and wouldn't surprise me if he goes on and gets another 10 plus goals between now and the end of the season. But he's been excellent since he's came in, and sort of what a business it was to manage bringing him over here. And obviously this season as well, it's been really good that I know he had hurt his shoulder a couple of times, but he never really missed any games. So overall, he was always back the next game. So the fact he seems to get most of his injury worries out the way that he had last season, and he's just been available for pretty much all the fixtures, has been excellent as well. And yeah, it's just he kind of run out of good things to say about Kyogo, but I thought his movement yesterday, it was causing the Rangers defence problems all over the place. Obviously, I know he got his 2 goals, but even that one I think I mentioned earlier from the Johnson cross when he was in the box with a header, he probably felt he did a wee bit better, but just the movement there to find himself free was excellent. And I think there was 2 or 3 times anyway that he got managed to get in behind, and just Rangers defence couldn't get anywhere near him. The only reason it probably didn't end up being a goal was sort of Kyogo's maybe finishing being slightly off, rather than any Rangers player being able to man mark him or get anywhere near him. So yeah, he was excellent yesterday, and I think he's just basically the ideal lunch player, isn't he? Just for the way he wants to play.
A masterclass in attacking movement, striker play. Sean, would you call it that? And
I would.
As Aidan says there, do we refer to these now as the Kyogo Cup finals?
I think so.
Is that fair?
I think that word's probably fair. A movement masterclass. We've had a few of them from Kyogo since he joined, but it's particularly satisfying to be able to say that he put on one of those in a cup final, and more so in a Derby Cup final. Got a few comments. Glenn Mallard saying the best player playing for Celtic seems to change each week, which is not a bad thing actually. And this is what I was referring to last week when there's a recency bias a lot, and it's probably natural when Celtic are playing so well. That 1 week it's Hatati's the best in the country, he's going to be player of the year. Taylor's going to be player of the year. It's Kyogo, then it's Carter Vickers, then it's back to Kyogo. Don't forget Callum McGregor the whole time, that kind of stuff. And it's actually, and I said this last week, it's going to be genuinely really quite difficult, I think, for people to separate one of them out. I think Kyogo might lead the way because goals are obviously more memorable, but I genuinely think you could say there's up to 5 with a real shit of being able to be named player of the year.
Without a doubt, yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, Kyogo might shade it because of the goals, but I always err towards the glory hunters and the glory grabbers and the goal grabbers. But I do love Cameron Carter Vickers as a
who is of course the reigning TCW player of the season, Tony, and was leading it the last time, wasn't he? He was leading it the last time.
The only trophy that matters, Aidan, isn't it? The TCW Power Rankings trophy. That's the one they all want. Maybe like to think that. Somebody flicked up a comment. I think it was Jerry O'Rourke that said I did like that as well. That Ange Postecoglou asked Alan McCoist to give him a lift back to
nice wee bit of banter.
That was and I said, and I mentioned that in a piece I did on Friday. He's got a tremendously droll sense of humour. Ange Postecoglou, it's brilliant, very underplayed and understated, but he's very funny when he wants to be. But yes, now other forwards, Aidan, Maeda and Jota. Myself and Sean looked at each other after Maeda's first attempt at crossing, but I actually thought he played very, very well. He grew into the game and stayed on because he put in a tremendous defensive shift as well. There was times when he was just chasing back 16, 70 yards and winning the ball at the corner flag, stuff like that, and giving it back to whoever these defenders were there at his side. And I just love that attitude and that application. And even if it wasn't coming off for him in the attacking sense, a couple of crosses were wayward, especially his first one. Shanked it, didn't he? Right into the Rangers end at one point. But I just love his work ethic, Aidan.
Yeah, I mean, he probably didn't have his most effective game attacking wise, but the sort of defensive work and keeping Rangers pinned back at times, particularly in the first half, and for a good chunk of the second half as well on that side, was really, really important to Celtic being able to sort of stay in control for the majority of the game. And he has maybe another one that goes a wee bit understated because he didn't score, didn't get an assist, but Maeda was excellent again, and just that he's another one that I probably run out of good things to say about him, because I feel I always say the same thing in terms of work, him putting in effort, pressing, tracking back, making sure that the winger on that side or the fullback on the other side is supported in attack, and then also the opposition can't get really down that side as well. But yeah, he was phenomenal, and he's another one, without repeating what I was saying too much about Kyogo, that is just the ideal Ange player You can see why he had him at Yokohama. You can see why he starts him in that game, even though I did go for Abada. But it was a bit like the Moy O'Reilly one when I seen that Moy and Maida were starting. That didn't instantly make me think, oh, Celtic are now suddenly at a disadvantage because they're not playing O'Reilly and Abada, which probably does show you how strong the squad is. And yeah, Maida was excellent yesterday.
Tony, Sean Malloy coming in saying Maida showed exactly why he's a starter for Ange Postecoglou. What rate is awesome. I've mentioned earlier on that in my notes, I kind of marked down potential key battles, and obviously Maida versus Tavernier was one of them. And in my notes, I'd written down, Tony, and this is what we were talking about, that he did look to have that space in behind early on, but when he got there, he couldn't quite exploit it. And it's something that we spoke about on here last week, which was, although he is to me better on the left wing, if he's in the position where he's beat his man down the line, going towards the byline, you can tell you know he's not left-footed, and it's a hit or a miss. Usually a miss, whether he actually wraps his foot around that ball. Now, by the same token, him drifting in from the left wing allowed that space for Taylor to get onto Moy's pass for the opening goal, and obviously he was in the centre and kind of mishit it or missed it entirely, but he still opened up that space for Taylor by doing that. You know where I stand on him. I just think he's custom built for Derby Day. I think he's in the strongest 11. Although I did say to you yesterday, Tony, that I was intrigued because obviously Celtic are always left flank heavy first and foremost. That most stuff comes down the left flank. Most of the work's there. Most of the pressing's there. Basically every game takes that form where the right flank isn't as busy as the left flank. Yesterday was much the same, but I thought when Jota in the first half especially did get a chance to get on the ball, he showed that he was threatening. But I says to you, Tony, I was quite intrigued to see what would happen if Maida and Jota switched. Like, I've not really been doing it as much, but because Barisic in particular looked as if he was really quite slow off the mark yesterday. And I just wanted to see what would happen if Celtic went a wee bit more direct with the kind of balls they were trying to catch Tavernier out with to Barisic, but with Maida on the other flank. They'd done it for a wee bit, but not for all that long. They did switch it for a wee bit, but I was very curious with that because Barisic didn't look as if he would be able to cope with it if they did it.
Well, I'm glad Barisic was slow when Kyogo sort of hoodwinked him, Aidan, for the second goal. And I actually thought Jota was playing well. I was a wee bit surprised when Jota came off, to be honest, but I thought he had the beating of his fullback. And I also think that he put in McGregor made a brilliant save from first half effort. And I thought Jota would have stayed on longer, but again, manager makes the calls. And
I think Abada done well when he came on. Dive aside, obviously, but I think he did well. And as I say, I whenever I see him now, I think he's definitely working on his dribbling. I just think he looks a far more confident player when he's facing up one-on-one than he did last season, which is to his credit. If that is what he's identified that he needs to work on, and that's what he's working on, I think that shows a nice attitude from him, especially when he's not starting a lot of games. You mentioned Alan McGregor there, Tony. Brown Warrior convincing. Alan McGregor kept him in the game and the scoreline respectable. And Brown Warrior says he thinks that Celtic would destroy Rangers at Celtic Park, and then he's at me. No, I think it's a fair comment to say Alan McGregor kept him in the game, but I also think poor shot selection kept him in the game as well. Haksabanovic dragging it wide. It was a good save from Alan McGregor with the other Haksabanovic one, I will say that. And then Matt O'Reilly, I think of all the players, as much as I think Matt O'Reilly's a brilliant player, I've often said that his shooting is something that needs to be better. And I think of all the players in that second half for the ball to fall to in that position, it's probably not O'Reilly that you wanted. I think Alan McGregor knew exactly what he was going to do with it because he always places it. So it kind of a keeper like Alan McGregor will know that. So yeah, I think poor shot selection as much as Alan McGregor's shot stopping as well.
Aidan, I was just raging because I called the team right and then I called it 3-1. So I was cursing both Haksabanovic and Matt O'Reilly for not putting a better gloss on the scoreline. Glad that we won, and I'm also glad. I thought Haksabanovic was excellent when he came on. Could have been 3-1, even 4-1. Celtic take those chances, but I was impressed by the way they lost their way a wee bit in the game, but got it back for the last closing 10 minutes and injury time. Aidan, I was really impressed with the way Celtic finished the game, finished it really strongly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody could have complained that if Celtic had ended up winning that game 4-1, for example, just based off the chances at the end. And Haksabanovic in particular was really good. I mean, he's run for that chance he had that he just put wide, which and it was like one of the last kicks of the game or whatever, was phenomenal the way he just picked it up. I can't remember what Rangers player it was he knocked it round, but just sort of dinked it around him, just had the beating of basically 4 Rangers players to get by them. And he done all the hard work, and then you're hinting a player that has qualities maybe going just knock it in, but it just wasn't to be. But yeah, he was really good when he came on. And once again, like him, Awata, Abada, even O'Reilly, I know he missed that chance, but I thought he had some nice touches. The substitutes, once again, contributing a lot. I know none of them scored or anything, but they came in when Celtic were maybe struggling a wee bit and gave the team a bit more drive, which led to them finishing the game strongly. So I know we've mentioned that the last few games, players coming off the bench and contributing a lot, and how important that's been, how important it's going to be between now and the end of the season. So that was another sort of positive to take from the game from me.
The fact I had money on it, Sean, and 3-1 at 14-1's got nothing to do with my comments to Aidan there. But hey, I'll live. Yes, indeed. But no, I think it's just great that we can sit here having the first cup in the bag and a first leg of a potential domestic treble. But even the guys, when they were asked that yesterday, they were still not got a job to do. Cameron Carter-Vicker saying still 2 trophies up for grabs. We'll see how it goes, and we'll just focus on the next game. The focus was always the next game. I think even Ange said it himself with his address to the supporters, didn't he? We'll let them enjoy tonight. And the day, I think I've got a day off today. She says, then we're going again. So I'm going to ask them to go again, because they said you finish with the famous 3 words, we never stop. But it just shows you that mentality. Even the players were saying, well, the next one, St Mirren, I think they were saying.
And it is a game at a time, and I know it is. And Tony, I obviously wrote the newsletter last week before, about like derby to derby, the 42 days of like massive 42 days in terms of the fixtures. St Mirren away, lest we forget, the only kind of blip domestically so far this season. So they will want to put that one right, and I know they've beat them since, but they'll still want to put that one right at the ground they were beating at. And then before the derby, you've got a double header against Hearts as well. Now the cup one of that takes on. It was already significant. Always is going to be when it's a quarter final at Tynecastle, but now that the League Cup's in the cabinet, and I hope you saw that video that the club posted last night. Now that the trophy is in the cabinet, and the 9 points are still there in the league, that Hearts game in the cup becomes extra significant, because let's not kid on. We are looking at a treble. We're looking at a potential treble, and it'll be a historic treble as well.
Yeah, if it comes up. Now, I wanted to flick this up. Derek, we met Ian Scott. We met him outside Hampden. He brought one of his friends along. We even got pictures taken with him. Poor man. But yes, we were delighted to meet him. We thanked him for his subscription, and he was chuffed, wasn't he? So well done, Ian. Well done on winning the tickets. Result dependent, always, Aidan, as I say, but he must have had a wonderful day, and I think they turned out to be very good seats, Sean, didn't they?
They did. He was buzzing. To put it lightly. But met him, nice guy. Him and his pal Michael. Yep, all the way through from St Andrews, and what a day for them to come through. Yeah,
and we had a brilliant moment as well when one of the female security guards photobombed the first attempt at a picture, didn't she? And didn't get her name, but it was a brilliant moment. She just jumped in and was killing herself laughing. Loved that. Thought that was magic. So I hope she's watching. Say thanks for that. It was a wee comedic moment outside Hampden, which was great. Now, Aidan, as Sean was talking about there, you do take it one game at a time. The quarter-final against Hearts, Scottish Cup quarter-final, will take care of itself when it comes along. The next one's St Mirren. They're ticking them down, Aidan. Can Celtic go the rest of the season unbeaten? Can you see that happening? Do you just like the players, just next one St Mirren, we'll focus on the rest when they come? But do you think that'll be in the players' minds? Let's go unbeaten, because you always want he always wants the team to finish strong.
So I think they can do it. I mean, the sort of run they went on from that Livingston game last season, and I know there was the semi-final blip, but in the league anyway from that game through to the St Mirren game has shown they can go on a long unbeaten run in the league. And since the St Mirren game, is that October, November that was? So ever since then, the fact they've been unbeaten in the league again.
September, I think.
September, cool. So ever since then as well, that's been another good few months that they went unbeaten. So I think it's definitely possible. Will the players be thinking about it? Maybe not too much. I'm sure that is in the back of their minds. Just like sort of maybe discussions about a potential treble that might not be spoken about, but the fact that they are sitting so well in the league, they've now won the League Cup. You'd be 3 games away from it in the Scottish Cup, assuming you keep performing in the league as well. Obviously, it is probably going to be something to consider, but I have no doubt that the manager and all their focus will be on the St Mirren game, which has probably got a bit of an extra edge to it than it would if you were playing away to Dundee United or something, for example, just given the fact that it was so disappointing the last time. And I just hope they don't wear that strip. That's all I'm going to say.
Do you know what? I like the fact there's an edge to that St Mirren game because that'll keep them on their toes. That gives them something. You know, instead of the season petering out, you make up small ambitions in your mind with every game now. So that St Mirren game takes on heightened significance because Sean said they're the only team to beat us. They want to right that wrong in Paisley, of all places. I know they've played them and beaten them since, but to go there and win, then it gives you. It's small goals, isn't it? And then you tick them off, and then you tick the games off.
Yep.
So you try and make small goals for every game. You know, we want to win because you
tick it off a game at a time, like it says. But it helps if you can find an edge. And you know how much I like my basketball. That was something everybody always said about Michael Jordan. Was he would, if there wasn't something to give him a wee attitude going into a game, then he would manufacture one. He would pick a fight with someone. He would get himself psyched up in some way. Now that doesn't work for everybody. Some people like to be quite zen about it. I'd imagine Aaron Moy's quite a zen character. We mentioned that on Friday, but it might work for some of them. It might work for Ange. Ultimately, I suspect he would say, "Listen, we know what we're doing anyway. We don't need an outside influence to give us an edge. But if they so require one, righting that wrong that's the only place they were beaten is there, and it's an easy one to do it." And I'm going to say there's quite a lot of comments agreeing with Blind Assabat here that the squad that Celtic have got at the moment makes it's not hyperbole. It makes it realistic that they could go the rest of the season unbeaten. Now, obviously, I keep saying about that Hearts game because ultimately that one is a knockout tie. So that one you need to win that game. You need to do it. You can't afford a blip in that game. But they will not mention the word treble until it's a Scottish Cup final. Even then, they might avoid it.
Shouldn't.
But no, they shouldn't. But that doesn't stop us being able to do it. And I would, when I say it's going to be a historic treble, by my calculations, it's because they would be the first team ever, men's or women's, I think, to win 8 domestic trebles. Because they're currently level with Rangers on 7. I think Glasgow City have had 5, and I'm presuming it's worldwide because I don't see another club having won 7.
Well, we'll focus on that if we get to the verge of that. Nice wee start from Kevin on Friday. Celtic did score 2 goals, so that was that 200th goal in major finals. Was that right? That was a 98th final. Was
Kevin said, that was a Kevin said.
And that was a 200th goal in major finals. The Celtic need to score 2 or more, so they did that. Kyogo has that honour, scoring Celtic's 200th goal in a major final, and it's against Rangers. Kyogo final, as it's now known. Aidan, you've christened it the Kyogo fight or the Kyogo finals. Yeah, Kyogo finals. Plural, because he did it twice.
Going to put up a couple of comments here just from earlier on. Pete McGee saying, if gloating and feeling smug were Olympic sports, he'd be a double gold medalist this morning. And then a couple of regulars from down under. Andrew Galea saying it was worth getting up at 2 a.m. Celtic dominated the game, deserved the win. Congratulations to the players and staff. Wombat saying the same, 2 a.m. start was worth it. Great stuff.
Yeah. For those asking, no, I've not been on the sunbed. I've got one of these round light ring things that shine on your face. When my good lady showed me how to use it because I'm clueless. She's positioned it behind my computer and it's shining right on my coupon, so maybe it's lighting it up like a Belisha beacon. But there you have it. I don't do sunbeds. It's not my thing. I like my bit of a Casper, kind of the friendly ghost type Aidan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Paladin.
Well, I don't want to go down that line too much, Sean, but there you have it. But yes, if I've got a wee glow about me, then it's probably because the light shining and just the fact that Celtic have won the first domestic trophy of the season, and it augurs well. You press the on switch, Tony, says Robert Gibson. Hey, there you go. But
is there any? Yeah, I was going to say, is there anything else that you want to mention? I mean, as opposed to Colgo's reaction, we've kind of touched on in terms of Tony. You mentioned what he said outside parkhead. Aidan, anything tactically? Anything else stick out for you? You want to mention?
Probably would just want to say again, Alistair Johnson. I thought he was kind of exceptional, really, in everything that he brought to the game. Just rising to the occasion like that. And I did mention it earlier, but that pass over the top for that chance for Kyogo. I mean, see if Kyogo would sort of maybe, if that had taken a bounce, it maybe in a similar vein, his second goal in the League Cup final against Hibs last year, that would genuinely be, if it's such a thing, one of the assists of the season, I think. That just showed you his sort of range of passing, I think, in quality, which is maybe not something we've fully seen since he's came to Celtic, just because I don't know if I can't remember if he's got an assist yet. I think he might have one. That might be one, but he's. I thought that was really good to see, and that could be maybe another thing that's we potentially see a bit more of between now and the end of the season.
Tony, anything else tactically that you saw?
Well, I just think you got to say that the manager called it right. You know, everyone was talking about how Beale made a mistake by not playing Raskin and Cantwell. That's purely his business, but he's picked the right team again because they bossed in midfield. Lundstrom never get a kick, Tillman never get a kick, Kent never get a kick, did they? Morelos got one kick, Topok scored. Right,
scrap the goal, yeah. I mean, fair enough. Scrap the goal.
You know, and it's all right saying that the team picked itself, but they've still got to go and perform. But he got it right again. I mean, that midfield triumvirate, for the time they were on the park, they bossed it, and it was noticeable that when their players get taken off, that Celtic fell out the game for a period of 10, 15 minutes, didn't they? But then got it back by the fact that the manager brought on Iwata because he knows what he can bring, and you touched upon Iwata's stats, so they ended up getting another stranglehold in the game through Iwata and Haksabanovic coming on as well, giving them that release up front. And even for the cameo that he had, he actually did okay. He stood up, and what a terrible booking he picked up. I mean, absolutely.
You know, I said that as well. I mean, the two of us were sitting there saying he's just shouldered him. Although I've subsequently, one of my pals says to us, "No, he led a wee bit dirty." All right, okay. But I thought initially it was just strength more than anything. Certainly don't think it was a booking, but
I will also say this, and people can agree or disagree, but I thought the referee handled it well, I have to say, because he refed the game, and that's all that Celtic, the supporters, asked for. A couple of maybe dodgy calls, but nothing untoward, and thankfully VAR never needed to get involved, but I actually thought Nick Walsh handled that occasion really well, and they get enough stick, we know, from Celtic supporters and lots of supporters when they get it wrong, but you have to turn around and say, I thought for an occasion like that, I think the two teams helped because it wasn't really a bad challenge in the whole game, but I thought the referee did what he was asked to do, and that's ref the game. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, I thought they done all right. The officials, certainly it wasn't. I mean, last April, that semi-final between the sides at Hampden.
Yes.
The referee became the story.
Yeah, Bobby Madden.
For the way that he handled it. That didn't happen yesterday, so fair play is what I would say. Should happen more often.
Yeah,
if I'm going to be a wee bit snarky about it, but ultimately, fair enough.
I've said before, Aidan, you don't want favours, you just want fairness, don't you? And I think that's what happened yesterday. To me, there was a total level playing field. No surprise that Celtic won the game then when they weren't, victim of anything ridiculous decision-wise, and the referees went out and did their job.
Yeah, I mean, there's not been many games since VAR came in. Even if Celtic have won it, we've not came back saying something VAR related, whether it was something that went forward or against, but there wasn't really a single thing. The goals, for example, were all clearly onside, no fouls in the build-up or that. So I know they would have been checked in their own way, but didn't need to go to a big check on the screen or anything. There wasn't really that many bad challenges, to be honest. The only ones I can think of are I think Lundstrom might have went in on Moy, I want to say, at one point that he got booked for, and then the one O got booked for. It was maybe a wee bit harsh, but I think he did kind of lean in with his elbow slightly. It wasn't like, he jumped up and elbowed him right in the face, because that would have probably been a red card then. But I think it maybe wasn't unfairest booking in the world. But yeah, the referees done fine. But like Sean was kind of alluding to there, that should kind of be the regular way in terms of the officiating. But I do understand that we always slaughter them when they don't do well. So doing a wee bit of credit.
It's not slaughtering, it's constructive criticism, Tony.
I've slaughtered them, I'll be honest.
I think, Tony, my worst nightmare was to come on here the day, win or lose, and have to drag up the IFAB rules again after a cup final. That was my worst nightmare. But I wanted to pick up something you mentioned, which was Michael Beale. And obviously, ultimately, if and we said this from the get-go, if Celtic pick the right team and play, then they're the best team in the country, and therefore, by that logic, they would win. I do want to say that I mentioned in the preview show that I was intrigued to see if Michael Beale's almost managerial naivety played a part, and I think it probably did with his midfield selection, but more so with his hesitancy to make changes when he saw that Celtic's midfield was superior. He waited until it was 2-0, until he was 2-0 down, I think, because don't let the 2-1 fool you. There was only around 15 minutes of that game where Celtic weren't the better team.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean, we sat beside each other and we were like, wow, we've fallen out it for that spell, but they got back into it. And Aidan said could have been 3-1, 4-1. If it goes 3-1, 4-1, would you be surprised? Would you have any qualms? I don't think so. Brown Warrior saying McGregor also kept Rangers in it with a few saves. I mean, that's true. You look at it, right, we take it from the top. 2 shots that Kyogo put wide. There's a header that he put over the bar. There's a Jota shot that was saved. There's Haksabanović's 2 chances. There's Matt O'Reilly's shot that was saved by McGregor. And then there's the 2 goals. I make that 8 kind of
decent chances,
decent chances, which they can do 2 of, So
if nothing else, for me, there was 3 goals in the game, right? Celtic's 2 goals came, and I realise they all count the same. If it hits the net, it hits the net, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think it does. And the way that Celtic won that game was by scoring 2 goals that were very Celtic goals, doing what they always do, but doing it on the biggest occasion. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Whereas the Rangers goal, and again, it counts because they all count if they hit the net. The Rangers goal was a scrappy finish, a kind of seizing on a chance that wasn't created as much as fell to them. And I don't mean that as cheeky as probably what it sounds, but ultimately for me, Celtic's 2 goals were Celtic playing the Celtic way, if you want to put it that way, and doing it on the biggest of occasions. And that can't be underestimated because it's not always that's the case.
I totally agree with that, Aidan. I mean, that's what you were alluding to at the start of the programme with the team performance.
Yeah, it was a good way to sum it up there. And I think that does probably show how strong Celtic were defensively for the most part, that it was kind of a smash and grab from a set piece. It was how Rangers scored. They weren't really carving Celtic open that much. I know I mentioned a wee bit in the first half at Sakala, maybe got a wee bit of joy going forward, but outside of that, there wasn't really a lot. Even when Rangers came into the game, it wasn't like Joe Hart was having to constantly save or anything like that. It was maybe a wee bit reminiscent to the second half at Ibrox last season when Celtic won 2-1. Even after Rangers scored, they did have maybe more of the ball for a period, but they weren't really carving open a lot of opportunities. So that probably speaks again to the strength of, Johnson, Taylor, Carter Vickers and Starfelt. So yeah, that was another positive aspect, that it was a good defensive performance.
Speaking of positive aspects, Tony, I'm going to just mention this quickly. I can't find the comment that Helen put in, but rightly pointing out, we've not been on for a couple of days, so it's almost old news at this point, but it was a derby double at the weekend. I can't find Helen's comment, but Derek Crawford's replying to Helen, saying the girls are very clinical. They obviously, it was a derby double. They won 3-0 at Excelsior against Rangers. Caitlin Hayes were a double, and Amy Gallagher, obviously, famously Patsy Gallagher's descendant, scoring the goals. It put them top of the league. They're not top anymore because Glasgow City won at the weekend, but nonetheless, massive props. I watched some of it, and it was they were very, very good value for that 3-0 win. It was not it was not a particularly close game from what I've seen of it.
Yeah, well done the girls. That's a tremendous performance, and Fran Alonso's got them playing well, hasn't he? He really has.
His celebrations at the end were worth looking at if you've not.
These are good, aren't they? They're enjoyable, and good luck to them. They're trying to hunt Glasgow City down, aren't they? And
yep, he was also the first manager of 2 this weekend that I saw in Scottish football taking his team on the pitch after a game and having a wee talking to with them. Obviously, he was getting them out there in celebratory mode. Michael Beale wasn't, but I enjoyed watching the girls' game, the Celtic women's game. It was good, and as I say, if you've not watched it, then I would at least watch the highlights because it was they were very good value for it.
Indeed, gentlemen, that's 50 minutes. We've been going on for Happy Monday. Doesn't get much happier, does it, when you've a trophy in the bag and all sorts of things to enthuse over? But in the words of Alan McLeod, when asked what he was going to do when he won the World Cup, retain it, was what he said. Celtic have retained the League Cup, Aidan, courtesy of Kyogo's 2 goals, the Kyogo finals, as they will now be known on from here on in. Joy to watch. And the great thing about it actually is you look at Kyogo's 4 goals in those 2 finals, all 4 different types of goals, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean,
those 2 yesterday were virtually identical.
Well, okay.
The other 2, so 3 of the 4, one the big lob, the other one latching onto McGregor, passing, slotting it past, and then the last 2.
But just in a striker's instinct for, and what he brings to the table. And Andrew was asked how valuable was it that to have a player like that. He said, well, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? So Kyogo, the difference last year against Hibernian in the final, the difference this year against Rangers in the final. Man for the big occasions, a bit like the 3 of us, guys. Man for the big occasions.
On the topic of big occasions, you'll have noticed I've put in quite a few links there, mostly because I forgot to put in the detailed ratings one earlier on. But the last one there that says relive the final moments from our vantage point, that's something I put together because there was 4 minutes of stoppage time and you were already at like 94 and a half minutes. So I started videoing from where we were sitting, thinking, right, the ball will go out, I'll get the final whistle, the players will celebrate, can video the Celtic end, all that kind of stuff. And then, as you'll all know by now, they ended up playing into like the 98th minute. So I started videoing and I thought, right, I can't stop videoing now because at some point the whistle's going to go. So I just kept videoing. So the last few minutes are there from where me and Tony were sitting, and you see the ball going out, you see it get Rangers trying to break away, you see Haksabanovic going through. I think it's Haksabanovic, that one. You see Haksabanovic going through, and then eventually at the end you see the final whistle, you see the players jumping about, you see the Celtic end jumping about. So I thought I'll throw it up on the YouTube, throw it on the website. So if you're interested in seeing it from where we were sitting, that's in the links.
There you go, Aidan. You're all dash sitting writing words, clattering like that. Your man's taking videos, eh? I don't know, eh? There you go.
A tourist.
No, it's actually pretty good footage, isn't it? And it does give you a flavour for, if you're interested in that kind of thing, that our vantage point where we are sitting in terms of the Hampden locale, and yeah, it's worth watching just for that alone. But yeah, the Celtic fans were in fine voice yesterday. Everything about it was just beautiful Sunday, wasn't it?
It was, yep.
All I can say now is we'll just direct you to the strap line along the bottom, as we always do. And it's hit that subscribe button, guys. Costs you £2 for 2 months. You can subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality football journalism, covering the club you love. It's £2 for 2 months. You know it makes sense. Just hit that button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to SENECA, who are our new sponsors, the Celtic Way Morning Briefing, now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. Gentlemen, thank you. Aidan, first class. Cheers. Top contribution there. Love that. Sean, excellent as always. Enjoyed that, guys. It's always good when you win stuff, isn't it? Indeed. So we shall say to everybody, have a happy Monday. See you again for a terrific Tuesday. The other mob won. Who'd have thunk it? There you have it. Take care, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks.